With it being after 7 o'clock, we'll call the November 20th meeting to order. Start off with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is the approval of minutes, which I'm sure was read by Deb. Look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. COC for 242-1428 Turnpike Street.
Commission will recall this order of condition governed the construction of 92 or 96 units. How many units? 49. 49, okay. I flipped that around. Condo units under a 40B. They submitted a request for a certificate of compliance earlier in the summer. I have been working with the applicant through that time to perform site inspections, receive additional information, making sure that the as-built plan has all the information required, observing the porous pavement behave during storm events, observing the wetland replication and the buffer zone restoration areas, as well as the bioretention areas. I think we're at the point where all the information that I needed to feel that they are in compliance has been provided. They had gone through several modifications. I wanted to make sure that they had all of the information and as-built information based on those modifications on the plan, which we believe that they do now. Let's see. The vernal pools have been monitored throughout construction, with our latest monitoring report received having been done in October 31st. Vernal pool monitoring will continue 3 years post issuance of the certificate of compliance. Those reports have showed that the control pool and the vernal pools on site have all had similar conditions.
That last condition for monitoring it, post-certificate, that was because of its landing habitat?
Yeah, I believe so.
So
I
we-
believe so.
So that clock begins ticking once we vote it?
Once we issue,
Okay,
yes.
I'm all set.
And I would actually recommend that while monitoring is being done on the vernal pools, that invasives are monitored for that time period as well.
Are invasives listed as part of the items
Yes.
to be monitored
Yes,
on, it has
right,
listed, said.
monitoring plan,
Okay.
correct.
So what mechanism do we use in that monitoring? We just simply receive it, review it, and if there's an issue,
Right,
since it's a condition
right,
that survives
right,
this release,
right, for 3 years.
theoretically, they would still be in violation to a perpetual
If
condition.
if the on-site vernal pools experience a deviation from the control in the negative, it has negative impact.
What condition makes reference to the invasives?
Let me see.
Number 35?
35? Is it? Right, yep. Condition number 35.
Okay, thank you. Well said, Mr. Chairman.
I had asked, my main concern was making sure the ponds were all set, they were the right size, and because it is a congested area, so we have to make sure the water is going where it's supposed to. Amy looked it over and it was fine. So I don't have any issues with that. it's a long time coming, but I'm glad it's over. I have no questions.
Amy, you're all set with the no snow stockpiling?
Yes, so we have no salt zone posting and no snow stockpiling posting as well.
Okay,
Yep.
in
no-
the applicable areas.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, just more of a comment than a question. This particular project had a whole series of modifications,
Yes.
more than any one that I think, in the last 10 years. Are we sure that we have everything all set, that we have the most compliance to the most recent version of the order of conditions?
I believe we do.
You're
I believe we
saying that,
do.
yeah.
I mean, I went through every single modification. I summarized what the modification was in my memo to the applicant as well, requiring them to address it one way or another, whether it's depicted on the plan or confirmed through certification.
Yeah. Okay,
So,
if you're fine with that, no more questions.
Because I was kind of like in a transition between Jen and Amy. So I'm familiar with, and Joe and I were at the beginning we had a subcommittee meeting, so we've been there for the whole marathon. So I've reviewed everything with her, with Amy, and they're all with you. The only thing, before we vote on it, the question of on that roadway, you want to put, is that part of that the snow stock, no snow, or,
yeah, it's on.
It's on
They
there?
installed it today.
okay,
Yes.
all right.
So I took every opportunity when it was raining to go out there, to observe, the porous pavement, which is a really huge part of the stormwater management BMPs, and to observe the bioretention areas functioning during rain events. I pass by it on the way to work every day, so it's easy for me to pop in, and I did that on several occasions, so.
I need a motion. I'm sorry.
Not sure what that even says.
What's that?
Just
What did I say?
a procedural question
Oh, yeah,
with respect to
Certification,
the certification on the back from Lawler Associates Engineers LLC.
oh, number 66?
Well, I'm
the
reading,
certification speaks to the state building code, not to the Wetlands Protection Act or the order of conditions.
I guess that was what I was, I'm just confused by it.
We have a May 2019 memo from the PE that speaks to the order of conditions.
Yeah, he furnished two.
Is
One
it-
was initially regarding the well protection act.
I may have missed it.
But I may ask if he would certify also that the building was built in compliance with the building code. And so that's that last one.
Yeah, this just wasn't, I'm not familiar with that language on a request for compliance with the certificate to,
So you're saying that that's not it? This is,
but
what does that say? Just, sure enough, just give it a quick read.
Okay, sure. Certified that I observed the existing conditions of the Compass Road and the 3 shared driveways. The water runoff observed in the last few major storms of April show that all the driveways in the Compass Road have little runoff left in puddles. The driveways in the road are being mechanically broomed periodically to maintain the porous surface clean. I had recommended the frequency be increased to keep the surface fines at a low level. Presently, mechanical sweeping is done 3 times a year. The drainage structures are in good shape. To the best of my knowledge, the work of maintaining pervious pavements and other dry wells and drainage manholes is in conformance with permit plans, order of conditions, stormwater policy of the DP, and all other pertinent laws and ordinances.
That only speaks to the stormwater system and pavement.
Right.
The language we're typically looking for is something to the effect that the project is substantially in compliance with all orders of conditions as issued, and citing those from and accept if there are any, stating what the exceptions are. So we don't have such a certification. But we have one document that's got nothing to do with us, the building code compliance, and then one that speaks specifically to the stormwater and the pervious pavement, which is great to have. I think we even asked for it. But the other one just isn't in there.
But the previous payment certification is.
But that's something you would
dated
issue,
May.
Patrick.
I was gonna say, I think I initially included a letter for myself when we made the summer application.
We had that. I would imagine.
Yeah.
So this is from Patrick Garner. May 28th, does that sound right? Yep. So he provided wetland restoration reports, vernal pool reporting, and as PLS, correct?
We have nothing now, that's 5 months old. We have nothing today saying that the project is in substantial compliance with the order of conditions.
Nothing has changed. Other than us furnishing more information to Amy and modifying the plan slightly to add additional data. But the project itself has
I
been
believe
built.
you, I do.
Well, I mean,
I believe you, but I've never seen a request for a certificate of compliance not accompanied by a letter from the engineer saying this project is in substantial compliance. You certify as the engineer, certifying with your stamp affixed there too, that it is in substantial compliance. I don't see that. I just,
You're saying because it was done in May and not in
Well,
November?
no, he's not saying that, but I think he's saying something beyond that.
I am going
The,
beyond that.
the age is somewhat an issue. I think the letter you're referring to is, that's the October 31st, 19 letter? That one's a wetland restoration report, speaks to the wetland restoration.
Right.
We have the letter from Lala to the building code, which means nothing to us, but it's here anyway. And we have not so much a certification, but a report stating the acceptability of the stormwater system in the maintenance and sweeping of the pervious pavement. But we don't have that one critical document that says the project is in compliance.
Or if
except
it's
for-
not, list the exceptions, where the exceptions are. That's what a request,
Sure.
I know you know.
No, I know.
Neither of us are new at this. Which, what do you, how do we cure it? Because that's, I hate to say it, that's the most important. You've done a lot of good work, because that's the most important.
I think there's been so many reports furnished, maybe the basic one was overlooked. Could the commission act tonight on this subject to, as a condition that Lala furnish that letter to you by the end of the week? I mean, we could have it here tomorrow morning. Everybody's on board, there are no exceptions.
There are no exceptions.
Yeah.
Would you agree that there are no exceptions? Could we proceed in anticipation of a certification from, and Joe's saying no?
You lose your altitude up in Maine?
I did, yeah.
That's like the very first thing we need. Without the certification, what don't we have? We don't have anything.
So I guess there's your answer.
So, that doesn't mean we can't go around and poll of other concerns here and ask for more information, but I would rather vote it when we have the document.
I know you know what the document is, Pat, I mean,
No, I do. I think.
They don't need to come back either, but
We were assuming the May report from me covered that issue.
yeah.
what's the May report, is the wetland restoration report?
No,
No,
it's Patrick as PLS for the project.
See, when was the
That's,
request?
that's not in our packets, that's one thing we don't have.
So when was the request for a certificate filed?
In May.
In May,
It was filed in May.
Yeah.
We've been going back and forth with Amy since then,
Okay.
tweaking the
It
plans.
doesn't say, is it stamped?
I mean, it is stamped. Patrick's isn't stamped, though. Is it? I don't think so.
I don't know. It's
I don't
been
think it is.
5 or 6 months.
No,
Um,
but.
It's a one paragraph
if-
thing
if-
usually. It says, I certify that. It kind of puts the engineer on the hook.
Sure.
Are you holding it, Amy?
What's that?
Are you holding it?
I'm holding his May 8th.
Okay, let me take a look. Yeah, okay, so it's got my stamp on it.
Your stamp.
No, it does not.
Not yours?
I thought you were handing me my letter.
Oh, all right. Yeah, yeah. I got it. And I don't know if that had your stamps. Oh, it does, it does have your stamps on it. Okay.
And I say,
Here's the, Alan, you can just go through it, right? Let's see what it says. Then if it's, if the only issue is the age, then nothing's changed, then we can, we can act on that.
this, I don't say I certify, but what I say at the end is this, which basically says the same thing.
Well,
And then this is covered in the beginning by a list of the various things that are completed. and photographs. So this is the boilerplate I use over and over and over on CSPs.
there's no haircut. You know,
What I can do though is I can certainly get you what you're looking for if you have something different, or something.
you know,
Unless I die tonight. You never know.
we,
You never know.
our goal is to move these meetings along,
Yeah,
and,
I mean, if you could approve subject to
well,
Patrick getting this thing to me by 10 tomorrow morning, I'll get it there by now.
So, yeah, I mean, it gets near it, but it doesn't get there. It's not in your opinion, COC is appropriate. I certify that the project under NACC such and such is substantially in compliance with the orders and conditions as modified.
So if you'd like to dictate that to me, I'll put PS.
you've never seen one of those before? I mean,
But this is what I have used.
It goes back to 80,
Never
right?
had a
It's back to
commission
80.
we look at that, we look at the stamp, we look at the discipline on the stamp.
I think that's what the condition says,
It is
certifies substantial compliance. It
substantial
doesn't.
compliance, and to note exceptions. I don't have, I don't have a, I don't have a,
Have an answer?
I don't have a solution for it. I mean, it's
I-
like,
Well, if he's gonna get.
it's an item that, that's the whole, that's the linchpin to the whole compliance.
Right.
I don't
Well, we
see,
can hold everything with that,
I mean,
with Amy.
we ought not to even vote.
no? Okay. If you want, that's the way you
I
wanna
mean,
go.
we shouldn't, I don't
it's
think.
the same end result. What are we accomplishing? You know, they submit the letter, the next vote, next meeting, nobody needs to be here, it's on the agenda, we vote it. I don't think there's any other issue with the project, but the document's missing.
So, can I sort of talk around this again with you guys? I am the individual who's going to certify to it. I have no issues, and I will certify to it. Would it be possible to have the board act as I suggested on a vote subject to receipt of a certification in the form that you're seeking by tomorrow? I have no objection to doing that. I'm in my office tomorrow morning. Sometimes I'm not, but I'm around tomorrow.
I move that we issue a certificate of compliance upon an issue, and hold it in abeyance and issue, for a period not to exceed 48 hours, and having not received that, that the vote is expunged and the order conditions certificate of compliance is denied.
Yeah, specifically that there is no vote. I understand what you're saying.
Expunge it and deny, and it becomes a denial.
You understand it?
Well, you're basically saying you're approving the COC subject to receipt of
Within
a
48
certification
hours,
within 48 hours.
But if we don't get it in 48 hours, it becomes
Otherwise,
a,
we're willing to give you
it
a
becomes a
14-week
denial.
continuance, and then we can vote on it in 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to you.
I think that's fine with us because you'll have a letter tomorrow morning.
I'll second the motion.
What are we doing? What are we second? Joe's or continuance?
Joe's motion. Joe made a motion.
I made a motion, and I'll
Okay.
restate it, just so we're clear, because it was probably
Yeah.
convoluted.
We've all been listening to impeachment
So I
proceedings too
move
long.
that
Not
we
all of us.
grant a certificate of compliance and hold it in abeyance for a period of not to exceed 48 hours from this time to 7:25 PM Friday. And having not received any such certification, that the vote be expunged and be moved to be a denial of certificate of compliance.
Second.
With the proper language. In the
With
letter.
the letter.
No, specifically, that's the whole point here. The language has to be exactly what every certification letter says. It has to certify substantial compliance with no exceptions
Okay.
to the order of conditions and all amendments. You're
And all
certifying that the
amendments.
entire thing is exactly right. That's the whole, that's the
Do
whole
you have the-
purpose
Do you have the order
behind it.
conditions in front of you?
Yep.
Because it probably says PE.
It does say P.
PE.
Patrick's you're a surveyor, right?
I'm a surveyor, yeah, so.
I know, I think an RPLS can do it.
See what the order says.
Yeah, these usually say PE or PLS,
Before I cause any more trouble, let's do it.
yeah.
Okay. A written statement from a registered professional civil engineer of the Commonwealth certifying that the work has been constructed as shown on the plans and documents referenced above and as conditioned by the commission, and that the drainage systems have been installed and are functioning according to the approved plan.
PE, so
Um,
my motion still stands, but I'm not sure you can deliver it in 48 hours.
Can you, it says in there.
I can withdraw my motion and grant an offer a 2-week continuance.
So, Mr. Lala or his assistant.
second that withdrawal.
You withdraw your motion?
And make a motion for a 2-week continuance.
Continue. I got a motion to continue, and we get a second. All those in favor
To-
say aye.
So just for
December
discussion,
11th.
the motion is now to
Continue.
continue for 2 weeks, giving the applicant an opportunity to provide the correct
From a
certification.
PE,
And we'll vote at that time.
because
Okay.
you're not gonna get a PE by 10 o'clock in the morning. After, you know, it's been so long.
Standing up there saying,
Right.
I am the
Right.
guy on record and I'll certify.
I don't know what PE's been on site, was familiarized himself with compliance.
Yeah,
with
let's,
certifications work
let's
there.
do it by procedure.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you, I'm ready for the vote.
That's okay.
So
All
that's-
those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, yes.
To
Okay.
December, to
Oh,
the
we almost
December
got that.
11th meeting.
Yeah, we almost did.
It's 3 weeks, but that's all right. It's 3 weeks.
3 weeks, December 11th.
Continue till December
To the next
11th.
scheduled meeting.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Now, do we need to return if the
No, you
letter
don't
is in
know.
your hands? Okay.
As long as she has the paperwork.
Please do a good job on that letter.
And to talk,
Amy, do you have a boilerplate you can send me to make sure that I please Al?
Sure, I can,
Okay.
We
can
could
do
probably
you
even
don't
dig
know
out,
any other compliance.
Any other
code, or
compliance.
it's gonna say-
Yeah,
go to any other request for a certificate of compliance and just photostat the letter.
that would be fine. You can strike the address and the name.
Right.
But what I gave you, what you've seen is what I use over and over and over. I've never had that raised as a question, but,
Well, that's, you're the condition
It's
says
the
that.
little things.
It's
Patrick,
okay.
It's the little things that kill you.
yep, no, I get it.
All right?
All right, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
thanks.
All right, next one is a small project, number 247, 328 Campbell Road.
Project involves replacing an existing set of pressure-treated stairs with a new composite frame, stairs, and decking, or a landing with railings at the front door, and it will have 2 steps. The new structure will be supported by existing footing, so there is no ground disturbance proposed. The work is approximately 95 feet from the wetland, with the existing house in between. The stairs are sort of tucked in the L of the house and the garage. Recommend approval of this small project category L with post-construction inspection.
No questions.
Motion?
I move that we consider this a small project pursuant to letter L.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Accordingly, I move that we approve the small project as described.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. All right, next one is, request for determination is 268 Raleigh Tavern Road.
I need to recuse myself.
Okay, then we, yeah,
As
we
an
still have a
abutter.
quorum, okay.
Commission will recall, this is a project for expansion of a deck that is outside the 50-foot no-build zone. The issues of an existing play structure and fence were items of discussion at the last meeting. Commission requested that staff review historical aerial photography for the site to determine whether the play structure predated the wetlands bylaw regs for no disturb and no build. We were able to find an aerial of 1995 that showed the play area in place. There was aerial skip between 1978 and 1995, so there was nothing in between, so. In addition, the applicant was able to secure an affidavit from the previous homeowner attesting to the fact that the play structure, play area was built somewhere between 1985 and 1986. The fence was reviewed in May of '27, along with a tree removal request, and approval letter from the commission was issued for allowing the fence to remain in its current location.
That was comprehensive, that was everything you raised as a question, that's all I need.
Yeah.
No more questions.
And I don't have any questions. Motion?
So I would recommend a negative number 3 for the deck, and a pre-construction erosion control installation and post-construction inspection.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that's unanimous. All set. Thank you.
Thanks for getting that done, yeah.
Good job.
Next one is 100 Willow Street.
Commission will recall, this is an in-kind repaving project for the rear section of the parking lot at 100 Willow. The previous meeting, the plan had a small sediment forebay proposed at the edge of the parking lot. The commission asked for enhanced, asked for calculations to make sure that that sediment forebay was properly sized, asked for an infiltration trench along the edge of the parking lot, requested that no snow stockpiling signs be provided for, and an area of snow stockpiling called out. Revised plans have been submitted to that effect. And the project engineer is here this evening to answer any of your questions.
I've read your letter. It appears that you gave me what I was looking for with respect to the calculations, so I'm all set with that, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, from what I saw and what I read, worked for me. Good?
No questions.
Jack?
Just clarification, the no stockpiling, no snow storage. Oh, it says snow storage area typical, so you've identified areas to store
store it.
snow, okay?
And areas not to store it. So we're gonna have signage at the far end of the parking lot, near the sediment forebay,
That's,
at the edge, and then,
that's snow storage.
and then to the right will be a snow storage area.
That's a snow storage right there.
So
Nothing-
is that clouded area, the long narrow area along the roadway, is that for snow storage?
that area,
Yes,
right along the edge.
that is, and that,
And
and at
then
the
over
corner.
there.
Now, where's the no where's the no snow storage?
So just for the record, Mike Lanham with the Moore and Cameron Group, public engineer. So, yeah, this plan, so there's kind of two things going on. This plan here is, of course, the design plan, stamped plan. Then included with that is, you had asked, the commission had asked for a operation and maintenance plan. So there's also this additional 8.5 by 11 you guys saw. Kind of, that's the one that you would expect maybe someone will actually look at versus this. You'd hope they would maybe supply this to the maintenance personnel. So essentially, these are intended to show where the snow should be stored. That's the snow stockpile or snow storage areas on that plan. And then, you know, we don't specifically identify on the plan where it should not be stored. However, the sign, the three signs, they may get lost, but there's a sign right there, one right in the middle of the sediment forebay, and then one here, kind of 25 feet apart. Thinking that's kind of the more effective way of just letting them know to not plow it there, and hope they pay attention. And then, of course, I think over here is where, you know, the commission had requested to try to keep it out of the 100-foot buffer, and I've done that to the extent practicable. I mean, there's a couple, you know, just maneuverability in here, so try to say like this corner of the parking lot is where keep it. It's further away from the wetland. And it's quite flat, so it's nice. You'll have plenty of kind of filtration through the leaf litter. It's really flat out there, so keeping it away from the wetland is accomplished with that.
Should there be a no snow stockpiling sign approximately at that spot where the note says proposed crushed stone shoulder, see detail?
I mean, that actually kind of goes uphill. It goes uphill a couple feet right there. It's interesting.
okay,
This
it's
is
not-
like a mound right in here, so I think you won't really be able to push snow
Okay,
too much in that
because you
direction.
can push it that way or that way, so if that doesn't make sense, that's all right.
With it.
All right, no further questions.
What do you recommend?
So a -3 with pre-construction erosion control inspection, post-construction inspection. And also, I would recommend that the O&M be revised to allow for sediment forebay maintenance 2 times a year, along with at the same time as the infiltration basin.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. All set.
Exactly as you dictated it. It's a lot easier that way, Amy.
I know.
All right. See, Greg knew it was his turn. Next one is 242-1772. Brook School.
This is an ad for portions of the Brook School campus on Great Pond Road. Ben and I had reviewed the entire line, asked for a handful of flag location changes. We had received an amended plan at the day of the meeting, at the last meeting, so I had asked for a little time to review it before the commission closed. The revised plan is in compliance with all of our requested changes, and so I don't have any other issues or need for review, so I would recommend closing the hearing and approving the wetland line as amended for, it's all BVW, all the series, A, B, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I.
None.
I have no questions.
One question,
No questions.
one question I have is I asked if you could put it, if you don't have to, was how you gonna access this property?
So there's really no project proposed at this point? But there is an existing access path behind one of the houses off Great Pond.
Okay,
I think it's 1193. There's a gravel road. That's how they access the fields for haying and,
okay, thank you.
yep.
Motion?
I move that we approve the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation as amended and recited to by our administrator.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. I'll sign correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was over 2.5 miles of wetlands that Amy reviewed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Who won that race? I've tried to catch Hawkins before, he's pretty fast.
Next one is 242, 1775, 1503 Osgood Street.
So this is an ANRAD application for 1,290 linear feet of bordering vegetated wetland at 1503 Osgood Street. Ben and I reviewed the entire wetland line and requested just one flag change, moving A7 upland approximately 24 feet from A8 and A6. The revised plan that we have here accurately reflects that request, and I have no other issues with the ANRAD application. Or,
Yeah, do we not have an outstanding violation on an order of conditions on that already?
I think there's an open order.
I think
Is
there's
there
an open order, I think
open
it's in
order.
violation of
I
this
think
property.
there is a violation too. I think,
Yeah.
but this is just an ANRAD. I think this is similar to what we did at Royal Crest. We approved an ANRAD even though there's an open order.
We did receive a call today from
There's no violation.
There's a
of rules.
violation,
This
too.
was- This was, from what I remember, this was a flagrant violation.
Yeah, it started off on the wrong foot and then just kept going.
We did receive a call from Amy today, and she made us aware of the very thick file in the Conservation Office, as well as the outstanding order and outstanding enforcement orders. So it's something that we are going to have to relay to our clients. Our clients are interested in the property. They don't own it. So we're going to make them aware of all the issues that exist and let them know that before anything's done out here, the outstanding issues will have to be cleaned up, and that this commission's going to expect that.
ANRADs are more than just check off the box, you could actually put some language in. I wanted to say almost exactly that. This is to verify the line and that the prior noncompliance and violations need to be resolved, must be resolved.
We can place that in our findings. It would be a finding. I don't know if we can condition ANRADs, though.
We don't have to
I-
condition.
That hasn't been my
They're not
experience.
gonna get
but-
anything anyways.
Well,
With outstanding enforcement orders.
I mean, Greg's gonna bring it back to the client who's the buyer.
That's right.
Of the cell, so I mean, you're gonna do the right thing and let them know that there's issues out here. I just hate to have them say they bought it in good faith. The commission said the line was the line, and, now we get this big problem up there. It's always been the big problem.
The remedy to that is the application checklist for an NOI. That's the remedy. They're not gonna get past that checklist.
Right, they won't
That-
be
that-
able to. find
Regardless,
anything.
regardless of our finding on the ANRAD on the line, which obviously, we have to trust the two scientists agree on the line.
We give it for 3 minutes, it's in the record, we're good.
Yeah.
If they wanna go back and look at the record, we raised the fact that there was a prior order out there, it's not closed,
Well, that would- again, that
leave
would-
this open violation on it.
I would think that would be in the file, so when another applicant, if somebody, whoever comes in and buys the property and wants to do anything, their application isn't gonna get past the file, it's just not gonna happen, it shouldn't.
That's
It-
right.
It should also, if they're recorded, the violations are recorded,
Should be.
Sure they are.
if they're
Well,
recorded.
the outstanding order
I-
is,
So the outstanding
open
order
order
is,
is,
okay, so, yeah, it'll all reflect back. Yeah, it ought to. Yes.
And if there is a deviation or something that's in violation, this commission could issue another enforcement order requiring it to be fixed.
But I think that, yeah, but I don't think we can, as far as the ANRAD goes, I don't
I
think
think
we
we've
can.
done enough, Greg, I'm happy that he's representing the buyer, so he knows he's gonna go back and
Potential
protect
buyer.
them. Potential buyer. So you're gonna
Right.
bring it to their attention, that's all you can expect of them.
Plus the fact he's aware that the commission knows of that property.
The only thing the
And
commission would
staff
have to
knows it,
watch
so-
is at the time of transfer of title, if 3 years lapses and nothing goes, nothing comes from this commission discussing the enforcement, there's a statute of limitations on any violations that exist. So that new buyer would be free and clear. So there'd be a,
So that's a separate issue from the ANRAD. We could
Right.
rule on the ANRAD. We could then take enforcement action immediately on the property. We could issue an enforcement order immediately, mandating a cleanup and compliance forthwith. We can record that. And then it's solved. We stop the clock from ticking, and we have a way to trace the violation. That, we can do that on our own initiative. We don't need anybody's.
There's a finding section in the form, in an ANRAD form.
Yeah.
But we should do both. We should.
I think in the findings, we wanna say it, cause the ANRAD's gonna get recorded too,
But Joe's,
chances are.
the ORAD will, yes.
The ORAD, I mean, yeah.
but Joe, his point is well taken. The clock will start ticking if we take no action. If we simply take enforcement action by issuing an enforcement order, we've told it, we've stopped the clock. And that's really all we have to do. That we don't have to do anything else.
All right, fair
And
enough.
we
That's
haven't
like
had a-
that's like putting a geofence up over the whole project.
I'm sure we'll get permission from our client to review the files, and for all we know, the outstanding violations may have been remedied. We just don't know at this point.
Okay.
No, they haven't. Those people they just walked away.
But we're aware of it now, so, I mean, we can take action anytime. We don't, you
Oh,
know what I mean, there's
I
nothing that
agree.
prohibits us.
I mean, we can do it that way. I mean, also, if his client buys it, the same violation is still gonna be there. They didn't go away.
I would like to think that if
But we can do it
if they
that
took
way.
the time and trouble to hire him to file this, they're gonna,
He's aware.
My memory's great, but not perfect. My recollection is that they brought all the fill and they brought it up and didn't compact it. So over time, it sloughed down and the toe of the slope nearest the wetland slid. Continued to slide for a long time. And even over and top some of the erosion controls that were in. And if this line is establishing the new wetland line, and if it is in fact in the area where the violation occurs, what the heck are we approving? Though I'm looking at a line that, this bulge right here is where I think the problem was. And, you know, wetlands typically mimic the topography, and this is an irregularity. I'm almost thinking that line is, and Greg, you were out there. I mean, is that made land recently, can you tell?
Yeah, so there's 4x4 posts with conservation markers on them, roughly marking where the 25 probably was. It looks like some of the fill migrated very close and just over that 25-foot no disturb buffer, but we didn't see any evidence of any fill in the wetlands that would have changed our delineation. No filled wetlands, just filled no disturb zone in a couple small areas.
The 25 posts that you see in the line that you're establishing wouldn't change.
Well, there'd be a new 25-foot no disturb based on our line, but our line's very similar to the old one. See these little symbols on the plan? These are all 4x4 posts with placards, and you can see they roughly follow our 25-foot no disturb. Here, it looks like one of the markers is very close to the toe of that slope, so I think that slope did push into the 25-foot no disturb, so that may be a deviation. But we didn't see any fill in the wetlands that would have changed our line. So the line should be
So if the
okay.
line is good, what, I'm just anticipating, so if a project comes forward, in that area, someone could argue that it's already disturbed area and it's within 15 feet, you know, we're gonna ask you to let us keep it there, and the answer is, no, that was the violation.
Right, well, that should all get worked out during the certificate of compliance process to determine whether or not the site is currently in compliance with the outstanding order. If there are deviations, that order has since expired, so they need to do a new filing to remedy those deviations before anything.
Enforcement order.
Exactly.
And That's our remedy.
All right, so let me just try to drive it right down to where I think it is. The line is the line today as it was some time ago. You didn't see any encroachment that would have changed that line.
I mean, our line's a
It's
little
all buffer
different.
zone, it's all buffer zone.
There was
impacts.
no fill in jurisdictional wetland resource areas, but there may have been some encroachment into no disturb zones and possibly no build zones.
And that's what I remember, and that's what I want to be clear. So the line that we're approving is only the line and not necessarily those prior disturbances.
That's right. All we're asking for is the bordering vegetated wetland boundary to be accepted.
Okay. I think we're clean.
Jack, any questions?
Right, do you have any idea if, who owns it right now?
I do. It's Jeffrey E. Ryan and Company, Inc., and Middlesex Street Realty Trust. And we did get their signature in the ANRAD application.
Those parties don't ring a bell.
No.
I know,
It doesn't matter.
so,
I don't care who owns it.
okay.
It's not gonna get past the-
Delaware. It's at an office out of Delaware.
No way. Imagine that. So, a Delaware corporation, you could blow me over with a feather right here.
Who'd have thought of
So,
it?
yeah. All right. My answer would be the same. Our remedy is the enforcement order. We don't need
Do you have any questions?
anything else.
Okay.
Do you have any questions, Jack? All right, so we're gonna do an enforcement order. But we can
No, what
approve.
we do-
We're
we're
gonna
gonna
approve the
We're gonna
NRAD.
rule on the NRAD.
We're gonna approve the NRAD.
We're gonna vote on, we need a motion
Need a
first, I
motion.
think. We need a motion with respect to this abbreviated notice.
Bordering vegetated wetland.
No, nothing yet. We're working on the language here.
A1 through A51.
Say it again?
Bordering vegetated wetlands, flag numbers A1 through A51.
I move that we issue an order of resource area delineation for 1503 Osgood Street for flags.
BBW.
Yeah, BVW. And the flags, what,
A1 through
A-
A51.
A1 through A51.
What about the VC series, D series H? You want them all included, or is, are they?
No, that's with Brooks. We only have an A series here on this.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Do we
say aye.
want to have findings that mention the outstanding order, or should we just take the
I
enforcement
think
order?
it's harmless putting it in there.
Okay,
Say
We should mention it in the findings, and then we
Okay.
should take
okay,
action separately.
all right, all right.
Just make sure the language in the motion is the way you want it. and-
Yep. Yes.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Thanks, Greg. Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, thanks, Rick.
Okay. Next one is 242-1760 for High Street.
Representatives for the project are here this evening. I'll just give you a brief update as to my discussions with them. I met with project representatives on November 5th. They provided a plan set dated October 29th for my review. That plan set has eliminated wetland filling, encroachment into the no disturb zone and the 50-foot no build zone. We discussed a number of other things during that meeting in terms of what the commission asked for information at the first hearing. And I provided you with an email with the bullets listed of those discussion points. And yesterday received a further revised plan that I briefly reviewed that needed some rectifying and some missing sheets. So we're still in the process of gathering information and more complete information, so, you know, right.
Joe, any questions for that? You want them to speak, or
Can I just ask one question real quick? Are we in possession now of revised plans? Are we in possession of revisions,
Yes.
revised plans?
Yes,
What was the date of receipt?
November 18th or 19th.
There was a previous set that was in late October, and then there was a
Garrett.
slightly revised set that we sent to the commission concurrently with our submission to the planning board, just so that everyone had the same information. We didn't expect to review those tonight, we expected to review the late October set.
Well, I gave you the
Yeah, we're not gonna
November.
close tonight.
No,
If-
Right.
if-
Well, with
And
the-
the last time around, we didn't even I didn't allow much of a discussion moving forward, given what they were asking for. So I think we're at a point now where we might have something realistic, that at least roll it out, knowing that the plans are gonna be available for the next meeting for the abutters to see.
Well, it's not just the abutters. Our staff hasn't had the opportunity, I don't think, to.
Well, I think all we're gonna hear is just a presentation. I don't think we're gonna have the ability to make any educated question.
no,
just-
there's issues that I've written out, because I read the recommendation from the third party. And if you read Amy's letter, she asks some concerns that I don't think have been addressed either.
All right, I didn't want to, I just wanted to make it understand the date of the submission of the plans.
Sure.
They don't comply with the 7-day
No, I
submission
know.
standard,
No, I
that's
know.
all.
It says 11/18.
Okay, very good, I'm all set, go ahead, thank you.
I know. But in any case, I thought it would be useful for them to come in this evening, just to provide an update in terms of the progress they've made so far, and to make sure that they're clear on what the commission wants for supplemental information.
Okay.
Because, Joe, they have moved the project out of the wetlands
That's
in
what
the
I wanna
25
hear,
and the
but I think
50.
that's pivotal to the whole discussion moving forward.
Then we can go from there.
Yeah, and, you know, obviously, even though we're giving them a list of things that they might need to consider, I don't think it's complete until Amy has a chance to review those plans that she just received.
All right, then, fire away.
Thank you very much. For the record, David Gillespie from Avalon Bay Communities. With me is Brian Hunley from Ty and Bond, who's our professional engineer. I think that the last time we were here, which was in July, to present, we received some, direct feedback about our previous application, and what I would say is that we heard you and we responded. The footprints of the building are significantly changed. The density of the project has been changed to respond specifically to the commission's comments. We reduced the project size from 250 units to 200 units, and we've now respected the line and the setbacks as we were asked. We've submitted the revised plans and narrative, and the stormwater report, which was recently resubmitted, is under review by Horsley Witten. So that is where we are in the process. We understand that there are additional things that we need to respond to, but I think, from the last time, I was told, bring us some footprints that we can approve, and then we'll get into the weeds. And I think from our perspective, we have now modified the footprints so that they're respect your bylaw, and we're ready to have a deeper discussion about the project itself. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brian, and he can talk through some of the technical aspects.
Sure, thank you. And again, Brian Huntley with Ty and Bond for the record. Excuse me, an overall high-level review or, summary of the changes from where we were in July essentially does eliminate, we were originally proposing some direct wetland fill. All of the direct wetland fill and wetland work has been completely eliminated. We've actually reduced, excuse me, there is approximately 1,100 square feet of temporary impact that we're proposing in the 25-foot no disturb zone, and that is specifically to remove areas that are currently paved and revegetate those. So those are only temporary for the project. Within the 50-foot no build zone, we're proposing approximately 4,700 square feet of temporary impact as well, nothing permanent, and that includes portions of some grading on backsides of the parking areas, which will then be vegetated at the completion of the project, as well as the majority of that is additional removal of existing pavement that is in that 50-foot no-build zone. And then within the 5,200-foot buffer zone, there's approximately 11,000 square feet of temporary impacts, as well as 21,000 square feet of permanent impact. And that is for areas of parking, as well as the building and utilities that are associated with the project. So I think response to the commission's approach of, don't come back until you have a project that doesn't request any waivers. We believe we've provided a project that complies with the requirements of the local bylaw as well as what's allowed under the Wetland Protection Act, and we're not requesting any waivers for the project. As David indicated, the first set of plans, and just to give a brief summary, the first set of drawings that were submitted that are the October 25th dated documents were overall site layout. They did not include details of stormwater design such as inverts and a lot of detail that was still in process. But in order to get something in front of both the commission and the planning board to show that we're moving in this direction, to get, you know, some type of a response before we went into all of the details on that, we provided those documents. Excuse me, as Dave indicated, we did provide an update to those just this week, primarily for the planning board for their next hearing that does contain a significantly larger amount of detail, inverts, pipe sizes, a lot of the detail associated with the stormwater design. That also is accompanied by a full stormwater report that is a full update from what was done previously. And as Dave indicated, that will be submitted to Horsley Witten for peer review. It's our intention that if there are issues that are raised, we certainly would work them out with the peer reviewer as well as the planning board, but recognize that at the end of the day, compliance with DEP stormwater guidance and discharges to the wetland are under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. So I think in a large approach here, our plan was to get you something that was more meaningful, that you could provide some feedback on. And then if we need to make additional tweaks or edits from there, as well as any responses that come back from the peer reviewer, we would be looking forward to making those, and I would certainly hope before the next hearing. So at the next hearing, we have documents that have been reviewed and that are acceptable, that are, you know, in compliance with what's allowed within the local jurisdiction.
Any questions?
So on that note, I think I'm to understand that the plans recently submitted were mostly in support in response to Amy's earlier comments as well as planning boards, but to get that detailed information from the planning board with regards to footprint, building, roadway, driveway, parking lot, that hasn't changed.
Correct.
From what you've submitted that's before us tonight, and in moving forward, that's pretty much what's still there. So I think it seems fair that, since we have a butters here, we probably, that's where we tripped up the last time around, we probably should look at, I think we'd like to see, you know, where those areas of disturbances are and what it is you're proposing as far as the impacts. The details will work themselves out as we move forward, just like you've done with the planning board.
Sure, and I guess I brought a board, and I don't know if you want to bring up the plans, or?
For some reason, apologies.
I'm glad I
I'm so
brought a board,
sorry.
so I
I'm
can
glad to.
stand up and talk through this a little bit as well. Where is most convenient?
You actually got a good voice, I'm not sure you're gonna need a microphone, so anywhere the camera can see it.
I don't know, I don't wanna mess it up. I'm already having technical difficulties.
All right, is this okay here? And I can turn somewhat to, you know, in both directions. I'm totally fine with this, so. Oh, that'd be great. An interesting use of an attorney, but nonetheless, I think that's appropriate, so.
Producer, you can pick up that shot well enough?
Have you got a camera on that? She does, okay, so there's a
camera
camera
Okay.
on that,
People at home,
Go ahead.
So I think that, you know, noteworthy is that, you know, from an orientation point of view, High Street is along the front of the property here. This is the bordering vegetated wetland that was approved under a previous ANRAD, defining what the limits are.
Come on, guys, we can't see a thing. If we turn this way, can you still pick it up, camera?
So the problem is, it has to, the abutters wanna see it, and we wanna see
Try
it,
it.
we haven't figured out how
I don't know,
everybody can see
how to do that.
I'm happy to stand anywhere. I guess my approach was to, you know, display it to the board first, and then we can certainly turn it around and we can answer questions as well, so. So essentially,
You got it?
Just do that, and then in 2 minutes, turn it so the abutters can see it.
No, it'd be, it would have to be.
I will try, yes.
Google Drive.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Or you can hold it behind.
Yeah, what?
Google, the Google stream.
Do it from there, use those microphones.
Shared drives right here. Shared drives, there we go. There we go. We might be able to get it.
Does this work?
That does work.
Okay, so, High Street is along the front here. This, as I mentioned, is the vegetated wetland that was a result of a previous ANRAD that was approved and extended by the commission. Originally, the building had an extension and a parking area in the back that extended into the wetland in this area. This is where we had the original wetland fill proposed, as well as some impacts for the parking area behind the building. So what we've done in response to that is we've removed the parking area that was behind the building. We removed the utility building that was at the end here for maintenance. And we've reduced the size of the buildings to allow for a slightly reduced unit count, as well as a slight reduce in overall footprint. So I think what we're proposing here now from a stormwater management point of view, the approach is exactly the same, albeit scaled down from what it was before. And we actually originally had 3 different point discharges to the wetland. That's been reduced to 2. Each of those areas provide TSS removal as required, and the pre and post analysis has been completed to show that we're meeting all of the requirements from DEP stormwater guidance for those discharges to the wetland. And I think, you know, from the commission point of view, there's an area, and I can show it more on the demolition plans. This is the existing pavement that's out on the site now, and then there's an area in here that is within the 25-foot no disturb where we're removing that pavement as part of the project. And then here is where it's in the 50-foot no build, that we're removing the pavement from that area as well, and those areas will be restored with vegetation in the end. So I think that is a, you know, kind of a high-level overview of what the project is, what the changes are. The overall, as I indicated, the overall drainage approach is that there are bioretention areas where possible. We also have some lower drainage areas that, and that was a question that came up just today from staff, was on what the difference is between a bioretention area and a depression that we're using for collection. And the reason for that is that because of the location of it, we can't get the pretreatment that's required to use it as a bioretention area. So instead, it's going to be a low-level depression that will collect stormwater, which will then go through a proprietary structure to provide the treatment that we need, because we couldn't do it with a natural feature prior to the bioretention basin. So function is going to be very similar. It's just going to go through a proprietary structure to provide the 80% TSS removal that we need to do. So I think that's a high level, can certainly answer questions, and I think our goal certainly also is to come up with any, you know, high-level discussion points or even detailed technical points that the commission has, so we're able to respond to any questions that you have in addition to any of the peer reviewers.
Wait, we're just gonna do the commission first, then I'll address the butters.
Yeah, will there be any infiltrators underneath those parking areas?
Yes.
Yeah.
We are proposing infiltration in 2 areas. One is over here under the parking, which is near the rear of the site, closer to the wetland. And then there's another area up here, close to the entrance to the site, where we're proposing infiltration as well to provide mitigation in those 2 different locations.
Have you done test pits in those areas yet?
We have not. We were waiting to determine if the Horsley-Witten review, as well as the findings of both the commission and the planning board, were okay with the locations and the approach that we're proposing before we went out and did those test pits.
Can you point out where the proposed 2 discharge points will be? Or according to the design at this point?
Based on the design at this point, there is 1 discharge right here that goes to this wetland structure, and there is a second discharge point, I apologize for my vision, right here as well.
Both in the same area?
They're both, yeah, in the western side of the pavement, the paved area.
Okay, are they, okay, the Horsley-Witten review will go through the standards for stormwater and make sure everything is balanced properly, but our commission traditionally requires discharge points to be outside the 25-foot no disturb zone. Is that the case in your current design?
Yes. I believe they're certainly outside of the 25-foot no disturb zone. And I think they might even be approximately at the 50-foot no build limit.
Great. That's all the questions I have.
Well, that's exactly the high-level presentation I wanted to hear, because I think we may have given some optimism to the abutters below of what might have been opposition, but really our scope as a commission is pretty limited. It's, you know, the wetlands bylaw, local bylaw, and the Wetlands Protection Act. And, you know, matters of, you know, height and density and traffic and air conditioning noise or anything else that comes into play has nothing to do with what it is that we do. We're here for a very focused review, and that's with regards to wetlands, and it's pretty much driven by the resource area itself and how is the stormwater managed currently and how will it be managed, you know, post-construction, and what happens during construction. And that's, for all that we do, it really boils right down to those simple things. So, you know, the neighbors may think that we may hold some promise in considering traffic impacts or parking impacts or other things, and just want to be clear that we don't have that authority here. Planning board and zoning board perhaps might have those, but planning almost certainly. So long as you're outside the 20 for disturbances, except for the temporaries that we're talking about, and outside the 50 with the buildings, and we're getting a net reduction in impervious area, theoretically, we're gonna probably talk about if there are any invasive plants down here, maybe have some sort of a invasive plant management system as part of the development, you know, be discussed. You know, those are the types of things that we'd be looking at. I'd be throwing my entire basis on Horsley and Witten's thorough review of stormwater, and if it's adequate, we're pretty much have cleared a major hurdle. And that's where I am on this.
I don't have any questions based on the presentation. I will hold my questions until I see the next advanced set of drawings and a stormwater report and analysis. I'll reserve my questions for that. Based on what you've told me tonight, I don't have any questions.
I have a couple. My question, first of all, I'm a stickler for test pits and a dewatering plant. All contractors say they don't believe they have a water issue. Well, you don't really know because you haven't done a test pit. We should have some type of dewatering. It's a large project. So we should have a dewatering plant of some type in this project. But the test pits are very important because I have a feeling I know what's out there, and I want it to be reinforced or otherwise put to rest. Also, in your responses to questions, requiring post redevelopment, and this project you say comes under redevelopment. Probably, maybe it does. I'm just curious, is it redevelopment? Like, if you redevelop the West Mill, this, to me, is new construction.
I believe that we've indicated that it's a combination of redevelopment and new development. And the definition in the Wetland Protection Act for redevelopment is if an area is currently impervious and it's being modified, then that would be redevelopment. So whether, you know, so any of the areas that are currently paved, any of the activities that we're proposing on those areas are redevelopment under the definitions in the Wetland Protection Act. Anything that's outside of that footprint would be considered new development.
Okay. On the other page, there's three buildings. What's the middle? Is that a small building, or is that just shaded area?
No, this is a clubhouse building is what it's called, and I think Dave can probably talk more about the building.
Can I ask a follow-up question to Lou's? The distinction between redevelopment and new development really just ties into the level of stormwater management analysis that needs to be done, but we're still, the planning board is still holding you to a very strict stormwater standard.
That's correct.
So even the redeveloped area, though it's previously impervious, we have to show a net benefit to the greatest extent practicable, you're doing that.
Correct. We're taking a lot of asphalt now that's currently untreated and discharging towards, you know, a swale and into the existing system on site. And we're providing a level of pretreatment for all of the stormwater that's going to be discharging from the site. So we are improving the stormwater quality over the entire site, as well as, I believe, meeting the standards as required, both locally and by DEP for stormwater on the site.
I just don't want people to be tripped up on the redevelopment versus new development, because it's not like you're threading a needle in a very devious way. No, as long as we're getting this net gain, and you're still meeting the standard, really, they're just phrases.
It's our opinion that there's a net gain, and that will be, I think, borne out by the Horsley Witten review as well, to confirm that what we've stated in that stormwater management plan.
And one more question. I believe, with the plan, it's hard. Wasn't there a pipe that ran along, or a swale that ran along High Street behind the abutters on this property that drained down, or was it,
That was in the ball field, wasn't it?
was it in the ball field?
I think it might have
I thought there was a pipe back there. Isn't there a pipe back there?
been, there's a pipe in the ball field, right? That's
No,
what I
there's a
thought.
pipe behind the houses on High Street, isn't it? Or is it?
No,
It's down by the ball field?
Excuse me, sir, there was a former ditch that Schneider, or not Schneider, but the West Mill ran a pipe through that. That does run parallel to the ball field and the fence line between Sutton Pond
That's right, though.
and
Okay.
the property.
Okay.
That was installed past 5-6 years, I assume.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so,
And that is shown on the drawings.
You
That
have-
pipe
yeah.
is here, and this is the swale or the ditch that he was talking about right
okay,
here.
yep, all right.
That was a source of a question in past hearings, that the origin of the water coming through that pipe. Or was it the origin or where it was going? There was a lot of discussion about that pipe and the flow. It had to do with either it emptied out on the abutter's property, or it generated from the abutter's property and came onto this site, and I don't remember exactly the discussion, but I remember that was a substantial conversation. This gentleman might have it.
Yes, to the commissioner, previously there was a ditch there, and what we found was with heavy rains and so forth, it overflowed down through Sutton Pond parking area and towards our building and for the whole length of our complex, down into the brook that is on the opposite end of our complex. That evidently has been corrected with this pipe. Source of water is unknown. But one thing I'd like to point out, if I could, while I'm on my feet, if you wouldn't mind, I was involved in, I believe it was Ms. Hughes at the time, assisted us in repairing and replacing a water line in our parking lot. When we did that, the town gave us what they had, was saying we had a 6-inch line coming down our access road. It turns out that we're putting in a couple of extra gates so we could shut off sections. It's an 8-inch line, and it runs directly east off of the end of the Abbott Building, or under the fence and onto that property. Our fresh water source is an 8-inch line running into that field. And I can only state what the gentleman was that was down in the hole digging, and the water was shut off. The water department had to shut it off from the street. At the time, we didn't have resources to do it. We've since installed them. He says, I can't see an elbow yet. I don't know how far that 8-inch line runs into that field. We're talking about building, 5-story buildings, foundation's gotta be extensive, and our main water source is there. In addition, the entire fence line that separates the property, and I've seen it, is not only our sewage line running that, high-pressure gas line, natural gas line runs on that line. And I'm looking at this building A, and it seems to be pretty much up against this line of our property line. While I'm on my feet, if I could ask, or if it could be answered by somebody in the town, is there an offset required on a building to another property line?
Could you state your name, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry, very sorry. Don Moriarty. I'm Don Moriarty, 148 Main Street. I've been an owner resident Sutton Pond for 24 years plus. And I proposed this knowing some of the infrastructure being involved in this project previously of digging into the ground and finding what we found. It didn't match what we were looking at from the town. It's an old property, you know, that happens. But again, my concerns are the unknown. Facilities that our water resource comes from two ends, from Main Street and from High Street. But that High Street source does not run down our access road. It's an 8-inch water main, runs right under that fence line, and I don't know where it angles towards the street, and I don't know if the town has a plan that shows that. That's a big concern to us, of course. Also, there's overhead power lines there that they're talking about putting into the ground. That's our power source. What interruption do we foresee at Sutton Pond with 188 units to our electric if those lines are down to be relocated and so forth? And I don't know, an engineer might inform me how they go about that first. But there's concerns, not only that, but also how close that is to, now I see where they reset the building for High Street residents, brought it away from them. They're literally on top of us and the fence line that separates Sutton Pond from this. That is our only egress to High Street to leave 188 units, to be able to leave the property. Because as you well know, from Main Street, it's a one-way down into the property, out of necessity. So again, I understand, and you made it quite clear, traffic, et cetera, which is our concern as residents. You know, we have conservation of any number of open lands. When do we consider conservation of neighborhoods and residential areas?
Extent the law will let us.
Well, I understand this, and again,
Mr. Morris' point's correct.
Yeah, yes.
That's what the zoning bylaw is for. They are to protect the integrity of the, of the,
Yeah,
of the-
and
of the
again-
district, of the town.
yeah.
As does the planning regulations.
and-
So it's not like the town doesn't care, it's that it's outside of our jurisdiction, but those other boards do have
well,
jurisdiction.
I have listed this and addressed this to the planning board a couple of times already. And again, as I say, does anybody here can tell me, or who could I find out from, if there is a required setback from a butter's property line to build a structure?
Building inspector, zoning, it falls under zoning enforcement,
Zoning enforcement,
which is the building inspector's office.
building
initially.
inspector's office. So
Initially, that's
I
where
could
you
call,
get that
I could call them and.
That question gets
get
answered.
And the
that-
setbacks are different in every zone. In some zones, the setback might only be 15 feet, in another zone, it might be 30. It depends on the zone. They have a zone map that references.
Again, that's
Yeah.
what I was asking, and I didn't know, so now I know where to direct
So
that.
your utility question is more complicated.
It
to
is
answer.
only for the unknown, gentlemen.
That's what makes it complicated.
We
Otherwise, we could sort through it.
we went to repair and replace this piping to find out it was nothing what we had, you know, knowledge of. And knowing that they're gonna be 5-story structures would require quite a foundation.
We're looking at their proposal, and we don't know about your
Yeah.
underground interferences perhaps, or if not outright encroachments. We don't know anything about it for certain, and suspect there may be something because of what you're telling us. But,
I would, yes,
the
make you
propo- the
aware of
proposal
what I
that we're
do
gonna
know.
review is gonna look at this, and they're gonna get, at some point way down the road, they're gonna get a permit that allows them to build various things, buildings, utilities, parking lots, driveways and whatnot, providing all the protections we're asking for. In the event of them building their facilities and they find a surprise that causes them to deviate, they have to come back to us. Or if they in fact find an encroachment of an abutter's property on theirs, that becomes a legal matter between them and the abutter. And if that ultimately irons out that you have to relocate, or somebody has to relocate that water main or sewer pipe or electric lines or whatever, that, if it's within a jurisdiction, also has to come back before us.
No,
So it's
again, I asked
potential
for
for
waiver,
delay
so
on
I'll
the,
go to
on the
I'll go
construction.
to the building inspector for the information I'm
Yeah.
looking for, and I thank you for that information.
But that other information, boy, it's like buried treasure.
Oh, this- I don't want to get into what we found.
And it's not unique to mill properties, where.
Not at all.
When mill properties were either under the same ownership or even under cooperative abuttership, one mill and another mill, they sometimes shared utilities and they ran across each other's, let me put a pipe on your property so I can put a driveway across yours.
When they dig over
And-
there, they're gonna find they're running into where there was
And-
rail lines there as well.
Good luck of any of us finding
Thank
any
you.
of that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Bonner.
Any questions pertaining to this? Do you have any?
I do not know.
You don't?
I do not.
Do you?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, there are, you're providing 50 less units. So what are the number of parking spaces that are going to be able to be on this property?
That's got nothing to do with us.
I know it doesn't, but I just wanted to know, because it was
You're
like,
asking for Doug, right? Because he would have asked that question.
it was 500, and supposedly it was 500 parking spaces, and then on the street parking as well. So I just wanted to know, in total, how many parking spaces you're going to be providing.
The updated drawings actually do contain a table that outlines what that is, and I'm not sure. Go ahead.
On the site itself, there are 335 striped spaces. Along the subdivision road, which is the road that leads from High Street past our property to the property line with Sutton Pond, there are 10 new parallel spaces along that road. And then, under zoning, we are allowed to count some spaces on High Street in the commercial district, and there are 11 of those spaces as well.
I'm sorry to bring that up, but I have other people asking me outside of this, so I just wanted to know.
That's
It's a
fine.
good question.
It is. Just out of curiosity, you must have
Let
found.
me follow up on that in the context of what it is we're here for.
So if, in the course of other boards considering parking, and in the course of preservation of the integrity of the neighborhood, we don't want to share parking on High Street, are you able to get additional parking to fully comply with zoning on this site as configured without requesting a waiver from us?
We're not requesting a waiver, and zoning has specific allowances for how you can calculate parking for use.
I'm saying in the process of going through them, if they say you must contain, hypothetical, you must put all of your parking on this lot, can you accommodate it without coming back to us for a waiver?
Yes.
Okay.
We have that analysis on the
If
drawings.
there was a change in the planning board and they decided, their zoning allows it, if for some reason their zoning didn't allow it, but it does, I guess we would ask for a waiver from them, we would not ask for a waiver from you.
And Mr. Moriarty, another person you should check with is DPW, because if that water pipe is on their property, it's there illegally, or there's an easement.
Well, I couldn't
So you have to check with DPW too. We'll check with DPW too to find out who put
Yeah.
that pipe in.
You know, again, as I say, we were given a plan where it said it came down a 6-inch coming down the main line, but this is where it ends up.
Is the pipe picked up on?
Not a water pipe.
The sewer line is shown, this water line that he's talking about is not.
No, and there's,
Are you aware of it?
So now that you're aware, of
above the
it,
sewer line is the high compression gas line, natural gas line. That runs.
We don't have a record of any water line that serves Sutton Pond or a high-pressure gas line
No,
that
you-
serves Sutton
you
Pond
don't.
on our property.
I agree.
Or an easement. We have an easement for the power company for the poles. We have an easement for sewer with the town. Those are the easements, those are the utility easements on site.
I thank you, just, again, just want to make it aware of it.
I think, just to close this issue out, can I just make one suggestion? To close this issue out, I would offer to meet Mr. Moriarty on site and have him show me what he has found in his, and we will work to incorporate it into our prod, and we'll try to understand it.
I can tell them what I know, but again, it ends at the fence line, so.
Well,
You know what?
we'll try to figure it out.
No problem at all.
Sounds like it will be valuable.
'Cause,
It sounds like your information.
I
will be
understand that the planning board.
Either shot in the dark or it's shot in the light, and either way, to see where it is.
And in fact, you moved it away from 50 and only 5.
Right.
I gotta give you credit for that, because, but I definitely would like to see test pits and dewatering on the site.
Well, that's
On
noted.
your next go-around.
Sure.
Where are you in the Horsley and Witten stormwater review process?
They did a full review of our initial proposal. They came back with comments. We addressed the comments and incorporated anything that they had for comments from the original review into the revised stormwater report. And that report was just completed and sent out earlier this week,
So in that design, we haven't dived into it, I'm gonna rely on them anyway. In that design intent, are you relying on groundwater infiltration as a way of stormwater management?
yes.
You are. And at this point, they haven't asked for, or demanded, or required test pits? That's kind of puzzling. Because if the premise of your analysis is based on infiltration, and you don't know what the soils look like or where groundwater is, how could the review have gone this far?
We made assumptions based on soil types and based on soil mapping. And our approach is that the design would be modified if our assumptions aren't, brought to light in actual soil testing that's done on the site. And once the approach is confirmed, because the locations of infiltration has the potential to change during this review process. And by DEP requirements, you have to prescribe where your test pits are going to be located based on where you're proposing infiltration. So we want to be sure that the concept that we're proposing and the approach on the entire site is acceptable before we start doing test pits on the site.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna jump right onto Louis' bandwagon on this one. If I'm putting such great reliance on Horsley and Witten's review, then I'm going to say right outright, if they're saying, we're gonna assume the assumptions are accurate, and we're going to allow you during pre-construction to do test pits, I'm gonna say, no, we want test pits right up front. This is probably the time to get them done. Whether they're borings or test pits or whatever. Subsoil surface exploration to know what type of materials you have, how you're going to infiltrate through, particularly in the areas where you're going to be infiltrating. And I think some spot locations of where groundwater is, especially nearest where you would do a dewatering location and could try to control and discharge, downstream. Those areas, we're gonna wanna see how you're dewatering the building. When I said pre-construction, post-construction, and then during construction, that's where projects sometimes can fail, and high-density project like this is where it can greatly fail. So we wanna see those test pits borings, pretty early on.
Because I'll be truthful, you won't get a positive vote from me without them. I'm a stickler about, I don't understand how somebody would want to come in and develop a piece of land not knowing what they're building it on. It just blows my mind.
I think we've done borings for due diligence for geotechnical purposes to make sure that the buildings can stand up. I think the test pits that are required for stormwater are specific test pits for permeability of the soil, and they have to be in the location of the infiltration chambers.
So, I think the answer is that we're gonna accept somewhere between the two. The fact that you did them for geotechnical purposes, for bearing capacity, for foundations, if you're doing pilings with little disturbance, that's one thing. If you're doing them for regular spread footing foundations with frost walls or full basements, and you've got a deep excavation that you're going to need to manage that groundwater, pump it out, treat it, filter it, and discharge it downstream, that we need to see, not for stormwater, but as a construction BMP, as a construction BMP.
Yeah, so the two things I heard is a dewatering plan, so we can work on that, and the second would be test pits. When I heard test pits from you, I was assuming you were referring to the required test pits that have to be in the exact location of the infiltration chambers. We're going to do those. It's just a matter of, since they have to be exactly where you're proposing to infiltrate the water, we don't want to go out and do them 3 times if we can avoid it. So what we like to do is get a general idea of where the peer reviewer thinks they're acceptable, and then we go out and do them once, and we confirm all the assumptions that were made by Ty and Bond. It's a similar process that we've done in the past with Horsley Witten as a peer reviewer in other towns, in Sudbury, in a lot of other towns that we've worked in.
And I don't have an issue, generally speaking, of where it is you're looking to put the infiltration systems. They make sense. So if you're looking to poll us to get an opinion of where should you start doing additional test pits or borings, those locations are fine by me. And it sounds to me that, is it David? Yes. David, that you may already have borings in there that you can extrapolate data from and work into the dewatering plan. You'll know where groundwater table is and how deep your footings are gonna be, and that's gonna help them do a dewatering plan.
And around with stormwater, soil analysis would be helpful also, but you get them in test pits. Because I have a funny feeling, I have a pretty good idea what's out there, being in town for a long, long time. But I just like, I'd like to see, I want those test pits, because I'm interested in the soils. Because, we'll-
Just a quick question. So, is it your intention to get to a point where that you have a conceptual design that everyone seems to be comfortable with? And do the test pits before you close out final approvals? Or would you do test pits after decisions are issued? I'm just curious. I
It's a
didn't know.
town-by-town preference.
Yeah.
And it's the preference of the commission and the planning board
Okay.
and the peer reviewer. But in, for example, Sudbury, one of the last towns that we did development in, we were allowed by the commission to do the confirmatory test pits for infiltration purposes after the issuance of an order. But that was that.
Crystal clear. If any aspect of the design under stormwater management requires on a certain amount of volume of water being infiltrated through the ground, do the test pits now. I need to know what that soil is now, not after the fact.
like I said, I want test pits before.
And we will do them, what we'll do is, we'll do them in accordance with the stormwater locations as required.
You probably know what you want to do, stormwater now.
Yeah, we do.
All right, so there's no reason why you can't do test pits now, because that's where you want to put them anyways, relatively
Yeah.
within a few feet.
Nobody's
I
dealing with
think-
hypothetical. You go through a
Right.
permitting process and go out and do confirmatory test pits and only confirm that it's not what you thought, especially on I guess it's made land, it's,
It is.
historically
It's
filled
filled.
land. And, we don't know what you got, and you don't know, even looking at a soils chart and coming up with an assumption, it just doesn't hold true on something that had been filled.
Right.
You'd have to go back to the 1800s to find.
I mean,
Exactly, so you dig 'em.
thank you. And the dewatering plan,
In the dewatering plan as
because
well.
you're digging full cellars.
No, it's just, it's footings, it's not a full cellar, just slab on grade.
It's 4
with-
feet, you can do a 4 feet frost well? Okay, all right.
And I know that you haven't had time to review the entire documents, but based on the topography and the grades, a lot of what's happening is at grade and above. There's, certainly for the building that's closer to the wetland, there's not going to be a significant amount of excavation to get the 4 foot deep to get the frost walls or to get the footings that are required. Because there is fill that's associated with the project to bring it to that level. Similarly with the infiltration that's on the, I guess that would be the western side there as well. The bottom of that infiltration system is fairly close to where existing grade is. So the existing groundwater elevation below that, we will be able to work around what that is. And, agree that, test pits are always helpful to get and, we'll use that information.
It's just, I like, just, it's common practice, and one thing we do as a commission is we try and be consistent, so that anybody comes with us, we look for test pits, we look for dewater. We had a house that we fought for 2 meetings to make, they were reluctant to do a dewatering plan or test pits. I know.
Wasn't just us.
Yeah, but, it's just, and I've spoken with Amy a couple times about test pits and, dewatering plants.
Quick question, is this a net fill?
Yes.
Site, net fill site? Okay. So,
You have a current 21E on the property?
We do.
Do we have a copy of that 21E?
I submitted a summary memo
Yeah.
of the 21E from our
You have it?
engineer,
this-
but
you guys had it on your desk?
I don't have it here, but if you have it, I know I can get to it.
No, we placed it on your desks.
It's
It
in
was
the
a
back.
one page from Sanborn Head.
Just one page?
Yeah.
Is that this? Is that this?
Yes, that's it, that's it.
That's,
The document, I'm sure. more
Okay,
substantial.
Thank
all
you,
right.
document,
Yeah.
it's got that.
all right, I'll let you know if we need more detailed information.
Sure.
All right, thanks,
Any
thank
more
you.
questions from the commission?
go to the abutters.
Okay, now we have abutters. We have any abutters with any questions?
We have Mr. Moriarty signed up as a special town employee
Ken,
now, so.
Please come up here, please.
Bob, Blue Falls, is that 21E, the public?
Everything's,
That letter
everything's
is-
public.
The only thing that we have is a letter. We don't have the 21E report. The 21E report is likely that big.
Well, that's okay, but I mean, is it
We don't have-
21E, what's the report say? Does the report
21E
say that everything's kosher and, you know, all the moss is growing out that way, or?
We can give you a copy of, this is the, I'll give you my copy of,
So, let me just, we asked for it because of the work that's in the soils near our wetlands. We wanna know if there's any interactions, and we only ask for that perspective. With regards to hazardous waste cleanup or remediation, that's regulated under Mass General Law 21E, that's where it comes from.
Correct.
And that's regulated under DEP regulations.
Well, I understand that, I
not
understand
us.
that, but.
So we don't dive into that in great detail until we see what's happening in a dug area right adjacent to a wetland. So, you know, I don't know what this says or what it doesn't say.
So just a summary that doesn't have any specifics in it.
Well, it references file numbers and whatnot, so it gives you the ability to go to DEP online and
Okay.
look at these instruments.
All right.
They're not usually an easy read. They're not
you have
usually
an
an
extra
easy
one?
read.
Can you give it to this gentleman? So now, that's exactly what you have is what we have.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Any more questions from butters?
How much time do you need to come back?
I think we'd like to be at the next meeting. I think we're hoping that the peer review would be done by then.
I think peer review won't be done until the test pits are done. Here, I'll say it again.
So,
The next meeting's in 3 weeks, and, which is, what's the date on this?
December 11th,
And then we're not back until,
first of the year.
is it the second Wednesday in January or the first?
I think it's the second Wednesday.
It's up to you. I mean, you can come back as many times as you want, but I mean, it would make sense to be productive when you come back and have something to actually tell us.
I think if I could be continued to the 11th, see where the status of the Horsley Witten report is, see if there's any changes that come out of that I need to address. We also have comments from Amy that we'll respond to in writing, so that you have a complete file and everything's checked off, and hopefully we'll just be waiting for the confirmatory test bits. And
Before we move and continue and vote it, I just want to ask Amy to correspond directly with Horsley Witten and be emphatic on that the stormwater review, particularly with regards to infiltrators, not be closed out until such time as we have complete, thorough, adequate, and substantial test pits to verify the soil condition and to verify the functionality of the systems. We will not accept anything less than that.
Good.
I need a motion? We have.
Yeah, I move that we continue to December 11th. Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Decisions. Papers over. Thank you. Thank you. Next one is 242-1774, 633 Turnpike Street.
633 Turnpike. Let me see what that is.
There's this one here. Looks like this on the front. Looks like that.
Looks like that. Okay, I got it. Thank you, Lou.
Yep.
Thanks, buddy.
go first.
Are you waiting for me?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
We're
I'm
waiting
sorry.
for somebody.
All right, I apologize, I didn't know if you announced it yet.
The proponent of the project.
I did,
Yeah, you can,
I did,
I know what your first answer.
okay, thanks. All right. Okay, well, I am gonna let the project engineer, go through the whole, proposal. But I wanna just caution that this requires planning board review as well. Yeah, you went to the TRC meeting, Mike, and, so, according to our bylaw and the Wetlands Protection Act, projects that need, other local approvals need to have at least applied for or received those approvals at the time of NOI submission. So I think we can open up, get an initial discussion, but the application wouldn't be considered complete until you submit with planning board.
Okay.
Generally, we don't approve projects unless they've been approved by other boards. Because if we approved your project as designed now,
Yeah.
and planning board changes it, then you'd have to come back, and we'd have, so we let them do their thing,
Okay,
and then we're like the last of the Mohegans.
okay.
Thank you.
Do you,
I-
sorry. do you
No,
wanna hear me
yeah,
out?
you-
Absolutely,
yeah, we want-
absolutely. I
we're
just
interested.
wanted to
'Cause
caution
I have
that.
a question. But we'll wait. Does he have anything to say?
So this is the first, we're just opening tonight?
We're just
Yeah, so
opening
Why
up.
don't you just give your opening presentation and we'll see where you go.
Okay, sure. So, first, sorry. So this is the existing conditions here. Just to give you a rundown of what it is now. So there's an existing ranch house there right now, and, Michael Riley, he's here tonight. He's running his Andover Pest Control's business out of it, so he bought it to run a business out of it. So right now, it's, a house, there's a little drive here, it's a one-car garage, and it's.
Do you want to just use this instead of hold back?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Okay, so, okay. So this is the existing conditions, but I can, that's fine. So basically, as it is now, is it's just a concrete drive here, just the house here, and then this is all just a grass area. Right here is all it is. It's sloping this way. This is the low point of the lot over here into the wetlands. This is the low spot, so it's gradually sloping down this way. So what Michael would like to do is he's running his business now, but he wants to make it more accommodating to run his business out of. So he wanted to have a Bitconk Drive coming off Turnpike Street to come around here. It'd be a one-way direction. It would come this way, and then it would have 4 angled parking, 60-degree parking here, and then come back out through the same curb cut right here. Now, due to the fact that we do have an increase in impervious area, we had to deal with stormwater. So our thought was to have a rain garden right here, and due to the high groundwater, because we did 3 test pits, I should say that too, we did 3 test pits, there's one there, and one there, so right in the vicinity of where we are proposing the rain garden. It was about 30 inches down, we hit some groundwater. So we needed that 2 feet of separation from the bottom of the media of the rain garden, so we had a 241, let me just get my exact numbers here. 241.20 was the groundwater elevation. So we have the bottom of the media at 243.20, so we have a 2-foot separation from the groundwater. And then we are proposing 24 inches, so 2 feet of the media, the planting soils, and then we'd have 2 inches of mulch, and then there'd be 4 inches of ponding. Now, because of the soils, it's CD soils and the high groundwater, I guess it was a little, not complex, but a little bit tricky, because what we're doing is the initial overflow will actually, we're berming it up on the back. So the initial overflow will actually go up towards the park, well, not the parking, but the drive right here. So technically, we needed more area than what we have now. So it actually would overflow towards the drive before it'd make its way out to the wetlands. And we do have, so it's bermed up all the way around here, the back. And like I said, there is a weir in the back, there's a proposed weir, but the elevation's higher than it is at the pave here, so it would have the initial overflow towards the drive, not out towards the wetlands. It's to keep it out of the wetlands, because we need a bigger area when we did our calculations for the stormwater. We needed a larger area to decrease the discharge into the wetlands during all storm events, including the 100-year. So even during the worst storm event, the 100-year, 8.6 inches, it won't reach, I think it reaches to 245.80 maybe is what it would pond up to. So as you can see, the foundation here, the grading outside the foundation would be at 246.20. So even during the worst case scenario, it would never reach the foundation. Like I said, if we got in a 24-hour period, 8.6 inches of rain. But that's been, and one thing I do want to make note of is no work will be done within the 25-foot no disturb. You can see the dashed line here. I call it out, but it's kind of hard to see because I have proposed erosion control right outside the 25-foot no disturbance zone. And Michael was saying that what he would do is he would propose a fence that would give back the 25-foot no disturbance, because right now it's actually a lawn area right up to the wetlands. The wetland is literally, the lawn is right here now. So he would give that back and let it return to its natural vegetative state, the 25 feet of no disturbance there. So nothing would ever be done, all the grading and everything is outside of the 25-foot no disturb. But unfortunately, I requested the waiver because we do have some work within the 50-foot no build zone. We have some pavement. It's you kind of lose it, but you can see the paved area right here in the 50-foot no build.
Only if there's no other alternative. It is a waiver.
Okay. Right, any questions, Joe?
I think it all boils right back to the planning board, whether they're gonna accept this or not, and if they do, then we have something substantial to go on. I mean, I'm intrigued by the fact that we have a small little pest control guy running out of a house with test pits, yet a multi-million-dollar apartment complex wouldn't. I'm flabbergasted by that. But that aside, I guess from a wetlands perspective, you're berming it, you're diking it, and controlling it all, upgrading to where we're concerned, and whether there are impacts to the sewer pump chamber, and if it's a tight cover or not, or whether it flows out to the street, I guess it's somebody else's problem. I think from our perspective, he's met the standards. But I think it would be difficult for us to close without that planning board action moving forward. Because I'm not sure a planning board would buy into this.
We also just need an alternatives analysis to support your request for a waiver. Any waiver request, for us to consider it, we have to know what your alternatives are. We have to know that you have no viable or feasible alternative.
Okay.
So you could get a copy of what an alternatives analysis letter looks like from Amy, and then you could understand what we need. It's a
Okay,
very
sure.
important document,
Okay.
because for us to give it, if we give you a waiver without an alternatives analysis, we're being arbitrary. We can't do that.
Okay,
So
sure.
you need to do that along with the planning board stuff.
So I will definitely do that. Just on a side note, my original thought was just gonna try to stay as much as I could, which I really can't, obviously, because we couldn't like pulling off Turnpike, you couldn't make this turn in here. Originally, we were thinking, Michael, we weren't even gonna go around the building. We were just gonna turn in here, have parking over here, and then come back out. But if you're coming this way on Turnpike, you just can't, you couldn't make that turn. Yeah, you'd get killed. So that's why it's a one-way where, so we have it, you pull off like this, and then when you come back this way, if you're turning, you would have this lane also to get over that way, or you could just.
You're fully utilizing the existing curb cut.
Yes, we're not doing any,
So there's no state.
same curb cut,
no DOT
existing,
curb cut.
nope,
So that's
existing
part
curb cut,
of your
yeah,
analysis.
yeah,
You look at different alternatives.
yeah,
Like you'd say alternative number one is this, but it's not acceptable because alternative number two, and you have to take a scientific approach to why you're where you are and why a waiver is your only alternative.
Okay.
You know, and it's gotta make sense,
Sure.
you know, and you just attach it to the request for the waiver, okay?
Okay, great.
Well, just, I only have two questions. One was the entranceway. If you deviate it at all, the state's gonna be all over you. So you, make sure where you wanna be, and then apply to the state for the permit. You're modifying, you're changing it, because that'll affect, it probably will affect the project.
Yeah,
Or you
so,
turn it out.
so we're not doing anything out here. This is all existing.
What do they get, what?
This
what
is
do they
all
give you?
existing. We're not doing anything
No
until,
widening, no nothing. It's
No
really
widening?
using
You got,
exactly-
because you got people coming out and people coming in.
no, so basically, it's the same curb cut as it is for like the single car pulling in. I mean, he has 4 company vehicles. I mean, it's not something where it's gonna be high traffic where people are gonna be coming in and out. I mean, it's just for company vehicles.
24-foot,
It's a planning board question. But they may say 24 feet,
you might.
and then you might force yourself to
You might only
DOT.
have a 12-foot cut that they're allowing you.
Yeah.
So you just check with the state, it doesn't
Okay,
hurt.
yeah, sure.
And also, in the back, and I appreciate you separating yourself from the wetlands, fences are not our favorite things.
Okay,
A
sure.
farmer's wall along the back, you know, just a loose stone farmer's wall, 2 foot high, 2 foot wide,
All right, great.
and Amy can plaque it. You know, then we give you the plaques to put in posts, that it is the wetlands.
Okay, great.
That's what we require.
Actually, please look at the berms here, because I think if the floor of your pond, you said, is
I have it here. So
245? No, it's even lower, right?
I have the detail here if you want to
Oh, that-
So, the rain garden detail here. So the groundwater's at 241.2.
Yes.
The logs are here, but 241.2, and then we have 2-foot separation to the bottom of the media is 243.20. And then we have 2 foot of the media here, this planting soil, sort of, so then 245.20. And then you're gonna have the 2 inches of mulch, and then we'll have the 4 inches of ponding is what we're allowed before. Because we have the weir elevation at,
Okay, so that's why you were saying, I was thinking of berm being found what defined as, like, almost like a dike, but
yeah,
it really isn't raised that much, so yeah, wall is probably is
Yeah,
what's necessary. Okay, sorry. Yeah, that, Louis, that berm isn't as high as I thought. I thought the berm might have been high enough to cover it, but it's not. So the wall is something that we would typically require
Okay.
at the back.
Yeah, that area is its own mixed use, right?
right now?
Along 114, it's its own mixed use.
Yes.
Village residential or mixed use? Village residential?
Obviously, I know what this bylaws, but,
You should know that, Mike, you bought it. It's mixed use, right?
Please stop for 1 second, my camera is not working.
Oh, shoot. continue, Mike, because you still got planning. Yeah, we are, she said we were.
Okay, we're back on live. Thank you for your patience.
Move to continue to December 11th.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that's unanimous. See you
December
next
11th.
time. December 11th. Hopefully you'll get in front of planning and get that. But like I said, we won't approve this project until planning is done because they get changes. All right? And double check the state opening, what he has. They're very fickle. Thanks. All right.
Do you not care about the green cards? Proof from mail?
She does. I don't, she does.
I care.
Amy cares,
Thank you.
Half of us.
Amy
She'll
cares
chase
about,
you
she
down the
cares
hallway
about everything, but
after
she
All right, next one is 242-17, 1600 Osgood Street, requesting continue to 12/11.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You just want
Opposed?
to
That's
read the
it. Yeah,
digest
and we're
update
gonna
from
have-
the subcommittee?
We're gonna have some comment from the subcommittee.
Sure. So Doug was not able to join us. He was laid up, and wish him well for that, by the way. But Jack and I did meet with him, so there's a second subcommittee meeting. We met last Wednesday evening. The focus of that discussion was principally to really dive right into the phasing in what order, what sequence we're looking to undertake things, and we find that pretty well. And then we really dug into, no pun intended, the use of recycled concrete material, and which would be principally building debris from the site itself and nothing brought in from elsewhere, for the most part. We didn't want to rule out bringing anything in it. So we talked about the slippery slope that would put everybody on, and that it would take a heck of a lot of confidence in order for us to, proceed along those lines. The way we looked at it was that separation was critical, isolation was even more critical, and isolation was principally driven by the demolition of the existing underground piping network that's there, and prevent any lateral migration. So what they have done is agreed to go back and look at they have lots of groundwater elevations throughout the entire state. In fact, they have a groundwater topographic map, subterranean map, if you will, of groundwater elevation, so they know where it is and how it moves through the site. And in those areas that are, first of all, there's absolutely nothing within the 100, nothing within the 200 foot of the rivers, nothing within any infiltration areas, and we took it further than that. And in any area where there was an infiltration basin, principally up along the side driveway here, there's an infiltration system, this white area, and another one up in this area. In those areas, to develop a cross-section that shows where the groundwater is, and to slope that out, and they give us a factor of safety of at least 2 times that distance. And in many instances, we were holding at least 25 feet, if not 50 feet, from where they would use it, and only above areas. So they were giving us 4-foot separation from groundwater everywhere, no infiltration whatsoever. All the stuff is managed by, pavement and collection into pipes, so it's not like we're percolating anything through it. And in those areas where you might, in the future, get pavement failure with cracking and moving of water, that anything that moved its way through could theoretically find its way laterally into these, we had them stay far enough away that wouldn't happen. So it was along those lines that we said you have any chance of having a discussion with us. And if you deviate from those, it's probably not much of a chance it's going to survive. The vast majority of the concrete is going to be building demolition, crushed, mixed on-site and reused on-site. The pavement crushed pavement would only be used as a sub-base, and Louis knows the process. Crush it, pulverize it, stockpile it, respread it, grade it, and calcium compact it, and then pave over, binder and top over it. Again, not for infiltration, strictly for structure. So those types of uses are very common. Town does it in every roadway, whether it's going by a wetland or not. That's how we reclaim Rosentown. It's a real good process. So that's where the lion's share of the information focused on discussion, and they believe that they've got sufficient data collected already, and with some additional data, and then design to be able to give us exactly that level of comfort that we might be asking for. Beyond that was the actual sequencing of, not just the general construction sequence, but the actual sequencing of where you're moving this material that may be vulnerable to rainstorms, not vulnerable, will be vulnerable to rainstorms, and that you need to be able to move it in, grade it, compact it, stabilize it in a relatively regular pattern to minimize the ability for rain falling on it to move leachate through and then laterally. So, that's exactly what most of their level of effort is, why they're not here tonight, because those plans are very complicated to give us that kind of sequencing, and they're gonna be working on that. Mike sent an email to us, which Amy forwarded through to us. I don't think it's in our packet, but I urge you to read it. Mike's synopsis is, I'm not gonna read from it, Mike's a great writer, goes on and on. Oh, he does have it. It's a great synopsis. It actually pretty much aligns with what I've just described and with what we discussed. And Jack, did I miss on something?
No, that's a good, that's a good summary, you know. I think my sense was that they seem to know pretty clearly how to address our concerns with the permanent, you know, to prevent permanent infiltration and pH changes of the recycled concrete, you know, through setbacks that you described. It seemed like they were a little bit more, that they would need a little bit more work to put together that phasing plan for the temporary, for the temporary infiltration that might happen during construction periods. So that, you know, when the areas are exposed, the crushed concrete, you know, recycled fill is added, compacted, several other layers go up there, you know, how they're gonna do that to minimize impact and potential contamination of groundwater.
One thing that we didn't discuss tonight is that this is a net fill site in a very big way. There's a lot of material coming in. So this material that we're talking about is not gonna be down low, it's not gonna be down anywhere near the water table. It's all gonna be way up above it. So the only ability that would ever get water down into it or through it would be, you know, while it's open to the rain during those extended periods of time, so that the sequencing can't be for extended periods of time. The temptation to draw comparisons of this site to other sites is great. It's an easy temptation, but the truth is, as we know, and I think we all know, they could have not have, the other site could not have used the worst material in the way that they were using it. They were literally soaking collecting the stormwater, concentrating it in filtrators, and soaking it through this thing like you were making a pot of tea, and coming out the other end wasn't tea, it was calcite. That is not where you would use this. This site is not designed that way, this is not being constructed that way. So it's tempting to draw the comparison, but there is no comparison.
The other thing, just a comment, at the next meeting, you know, our reluctance to the RCA is fill. And you mentioned the fact that there's a possibility that they were gonna bring some in. I think they should not be allowed to bring any recycled concrete. What's there, okay, I can live with that, but they need more fill.
We actually broached that subject, but they didn't commit to not bringing it in. What we did pretty much agree to is that it makes perfect sense that rather than crushing the stuff and hauling it out, is that there is a reuse for it that can be done and done right on site.
You said there's a net, they need fill.
It's a net fill, there's a lot of stuff
So
in there.
I don't think, and I know Mr. Pitts would be the first one to say.
Let's communicate that, because we really didn't talk about that much at all
I don't think
in our subcommittee
there should be
meeting.
any
There was no
recycled
commitment.
concrete
There's no
crack.
commitment. By the way, we ended the meeting, as we do all the subcommittee meetings, that we're here as a working group, that none of us carry the ball for anybody. We're all gonna ultimately make our decision based on the facts individually, and we just try to give them the guidance and point out pitfalls and And there's no question, they understand the significance of
Well,
this issue.
if the material comes up again, just reinforce it, that you're feeling the contention of the commission that recycled concrete will not be brought on the site.
I think we ought to let them bring some nuclear waste in too while they're at it. I mean, you're dealing with poison here, all right? We're just learning about RCA. This is something that's new. We never heard of it before this project down the street.
Well,
And-
I'm familiar with it, I'm sure Joe is.
It will,
It was put in a wrong application.
Had they
We
not
don't-
infiltrated through it, we wouldn't know about it up there either.
We don't know that yet, because we haven't gone to other sites anywhere, not just in this town, but anywhere, where RCA has been used, gone in, put in test wells, drawn the water out, or tested surface water in the vicinity. We don't know yet how damning this stuff is. This stuff is poison, and we're just learning now how little of it can change the pH level in surface water to hazmat levels. It changed that water on that other project. There was a small pond that had the highest pH levels they've ever recorded, and that was surface water that kids can go in and play in. The stuff is poison, and we should be taking a very strong stand with the application of this stuff anywhere in this town. 10 to 15 years from now, I hesitate to find what we're gonna learn from applications of this. It's one of those things, it's long-term damage, and we only learn about it when something actually happens. Everybody, these guys can well afford to get rid of it and to bring in clean fill. They can well afford it. This is a billion-dollar project. This is less than 1% of what it's gonna cost them to do their job. It's unnecessary. And it's just, I remember an applicant once came before us, and we asked him why he had to clear cut as much as he did, and he said, because I can. And, that's what I'm getting here, and not from you guys, from the applicant. And to me, it's unacceptable. It's just, that there's no financial hardship here. There's no reason why this stuff can be excluded, can't be excluded. It can be excluded, and it ought to be. I'll pound the table on it all the way. I'm not, no exceptions as far as I'm
I
concerned.
have one more question.
The science will bear me out.
We're gonna ask the segment. I was told that there is asbestos in the yellow brick.
Yeah.
On the exterior of the
Pick your
building.
poison, I guess, huh?
So, if they're gonna grind that up and put it in the ground, that could be an issue.
Well, grinding an object that has asbestos, now, that's not within our purview, I understand. We don't control what goes into the air, but, again, you wanna be downwind of that grinding?
No, I agree. And I don't want it on the ground either. It's filled. At some point, they should do an analysis on the,
Well, there are
the
ways,
brick.
to get rid of every kind of hazardous material.
Oh, I know.
There's always, which is why I made the reference to nuclear waste. We can dispose of anything legally. We shouldn't be, we especially, shouldn't be in the business of letting them reintroduce that stuff into the ground if it's not net. We shouldn't. It's just, we shouldn't be allowing it. You're never gonna sell me on it, never, because there's plenty of alternatives that are acceptable.
So where's,
So that message can go back with the subcommittee.
I was just gonna
I
say, we're
think-
really almost crossing a line of debate when we don't intend it.
Yeah,
The update was an appropriate update. Your feedback is an appropriate feedback that we will bring back. It's not like they haven't heard it already.
Okay. I'm sick.
No, they haven't heard it already, so they'll hear it again.
I don't want to shut it down.
no, I
I
get
just
you.
want to be careful, that's all.
And I appreciate that, thank you, because I try to be careful at this
I
table all
know,
the time.
I know, I know.
Thank you. Right.
All right. So, thank you for the input, and we'll,
And we will be meeting one more time, at least, probably just one more time before the December 11th meeting.
okay, good.
All right.
Just haven't put the dates together yet.
Yeah, no, they threw out Tuesday, December 3rd as a first choice, Monday the 2nd, and then Wednesday the 4th, so I'll contact you guys. Okay,
Next one is an enforcement order for 410 Sutton Street.
Summer.
I'm sorry, Summer. How do you get Sutton out of that?
Department staff noticed some excavation going on behind the house at 410 Summer Street. I had asked our field inspector, Ben Carol to go out there and take a look to see what's going on, because we didn't have anything on file. Ben visited the site and spoke with the homeowner, wasn't able to go on site to get a full analysis of proximity of work to the wetland, but we're fairly confident that it's at least in the 50-foot no-build and maybe in the 25. As it was described to us, it is a replacement of an existing in-ground pool.
Can I correct that? The
and-
project
and I
started out as
can-
a refurbishment.
Okay.
The walls of the pool rotted away, and for safety reasons, they said we have to get rid of the structure and replace it. Family Pools, the contractor. I contracted Family Pools and Triad Concrete. The original job was to dig up the concrete, replace it in kind, just drop-in replacement. The concrete was old. At the same time, the job was for Family Pools to redo the liner and the coping. If you would like to see the original job right here. As the job developed, they started digging it. They had to review the pool walls as they dug up. They found them rotted, and they said, we need to replace it. I'm not trying to expand my property. I'm just trying to replace the pool and the decking. The contractors both said we don't need a permit. It's it's an existing structure.
You were replacing the patio though, as part of the original work, right?
Say again?
Triad was replacing the
The
original
concrete, they're the concrete contractor.
Patio.
Yes,
patio? And that was part of the project, is you were gonna tear that up and replace that, right?
correct.
That requires a permit.
Oh.
So that's why you're here. And everything in the pool may have started out as a repair and became a project, which then would have required a permit. But the patio itself and the decking around the pool required a permit from us, and that's exactly why you're here.
And my understanding also, and I'm not gonna hang my hat on it, but my understanding is you can repair without a permit, but you can't replace. Even if it's a replacement in kind, you need a permit to do that, I believe.
Okay, I'm unaware of this.
Which would have, if you had, that would have brought our department into it, and you would have had,
So all that being said, the patio, that would have required a permit if it was an exact replacement, and it was, at the very worst, it probably would have been an RDA, if it's replacing exactly as it was. It might have been considered a small project depending on distance, but maybe not. But, it would have been a really less onerous approach, but do we know what was there, or is it all broken up now?
Well, I found aerial 1978, so the pool has been there since 78. Okay, so we can say that.
That's fine.
And, it's a rectangular shape pool with a rectangular shape, patio surround.
So the pool was there before the bylaw?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's fine, so,
No, not really, because I spoke to the building inspector
yeah.
today, and he stated that when you replace the pool, it reverts back to the new bylaws.
For
I
offsets.
don't believe that.
Well, that's what he said.
Well, that's why we have a ZBA. I don't believe that at all. I think
Well, and this one's in the 50 and the 25.
you got me there, but what I'm saying is, with respect to,
You were standing right there. He did say that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know that he needs a
It
permit from
reverts
the
back
building
to-
department, I know
It
that.
reverts to the new.
you're saying replacing the old pool triggers the new, whatever the new setbacks are and all that stuff.
Yeah,
And respectfully, I don't believe that's accurate.
The building code maybe, but not.
okay.
I don't know.
I don't believe it.
I don't
But without debating
Well,
something that
that's
has
not
nothing to do with us.
anyway.
let's
No,
see-
well, I'm just saying.
Let's see if we can help this guy get his job done.
Because where it is, it's,
All right, do we,
We
so
can
we
re-
know reasonably so what the limits of the deck were?
Other than aerial. No. Other than aerial photo, no.
So Triad must give it a proposal, remove and replace such and such a deck, maybe even have some photos and, for price to put the new one in, certain dimensions, so we may be able to wiggle in, so long as we're working within the exact same footprint. If we're working with the exact same footprint, we might be
I don't
considering.
know what that is.
And if we think we're not working with the exact same footprint, then we're looking at a full-blown NOI, and we probably wouldn't let it get any closer. So the reality is, he
Well-
probably wants to work in the same footprint.
Sure.
again, the pool itself in the ground, that's a building department question. I think our fight is gonna be in the patio itself, right?
No, the problem is the pool's in the 15 to 25.
But it's been there since
But it was.
1978. As
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned, that's a grandfathered project.
You can replace it, you just can't get any closer.
He just can't get any closer, but he can replace it in kind.
Well,
He absolutely can.
I'm
Can't just
getting,
do it on his own, needs a permit. That we're clear on, right?
you need a permit. For the pool reconstruction and the patio reconstruction.
You're talking about a building permit.
No,
Yeah,
a
so-
permit from the concert, yes.
A building, he needs a building.
Yes, he needs a building permit
So he's
and
gotta
a
apply,
conservation
But I
permit.
mean,
I think we need to know what we have here, because we don't know what our setbacks are.
but we know the pool's been there since 78.
Oh, right.
So,
True.
you know,
Right, but, I mean, I'd just like to, you may have heard this from Amy, but the reason why you got an enforcement order is because any work within 100 feet of a wetland is jurisdictional for this commission. Okay, so that's why the enforcement order was put out, because they were certain that the work was within 100 feet. And it sounds like you got some bad advice from some contractors. So we're trying to just work through it the right way. But the long and short of it is, we're gonna have to, the representative from our commission's gonna have to go on site and get a reasonable estimate of where the wetland line is and establish some setbacks, how far the proposed work is going to be from the actual wetland line. And that's what I'm referring to when I say we need to know what we have here, because all we know now is that we're pretty sure it's within the 50-foot no build zone, and it might be within the 25-foot no disturb zone, but we don't know what we have. So I think an RDA, request for determination of applicability, is probably the minimum, is what you're gonna have to do. It'll sort of document these things, get us all an understanding of what you're proposing, and just trying to work it through, because you've had a pool there since 1978. You've got some safety concerns. You're doing what you think is right, and you'd do what anyone else would do. You got some bad advice. We're trying to rectify that. Let's just do it right and move on. So that's really what's going on here.
So I just want to point out that we did find past correspondence in the file on or about March of 2018 about tree removal in the no disturb zone for this property, the same owner. So Jen had written enforcement letters for that activity and required restoration.
All right, so let's just give them the direction.
Okay.
We want to try to help you if we can. We can't make magic happen, but we want to try to help you. It sounds like you need to do two things at the same time. It sounds like you need to request a building permit, file for a building permit with the building department to remove and replace your pool or whatever it is that needs to be done. And that will trigger, when you fill out the form, the application for the building permit, that will trigger you over to Amy for a Form U sign-off, and you would have to do a filing with us on what needs to be proposed. That's really what you gotta do. And the wetland needs to be delineated. Do you want him to
I
get
think a wetland scientist should delineate it,
a wetland scientist?
yes.
Yeah, so I would agree with that, too. We need to know where the line is. So unfortunately, it's gonna be a little bigger project than you, but you definitely, I agree with Jack, you were given real bad advice by the contractor. That, I think you could just go down to town hall and, get it started down there. But you're gonna, yes, you have to get a scientist on board, too.
What's the status of the construction right now? Is it ongoing? Is it stopped?
Yeah, I mean, exposed soil, mounds of dirt. I mean, we couldn't get close enough to look, but from the street, there's mounds of dirt around,
So
so.
typically, it would be cease and desist unless there's an inherent threat of migration of what's been done moving
No,
into
we
the wetland. So
required them to
we would want
install
to
erosion
stabilize,
control.
stabilize the areas, put erosion controls in, stop work.
Yep.
Get your permits in place, plan it right, and pick up when the permits are in place.
That's really what you have to do. Okay. If you swing into the swing into the office and start your application process, they can give you a list of names of different wetland scientists that might be able to help you out. We can't give you one name, but we can give you a list, and you can call them and pick and choose. And, you know, start there. Start with a wetland scientist that's affiliated with a land surveyor, and they can make a map up for you, do a plot plan, and do everything right for you. Unfortunately, you're gonna have to stop what you're doing right now and stabilize the site. And allow our staff to come on the site and look at it.
Okay.
So,
So we've got all the hand-holding, and we gave a pretty good process that makes sense, at least it makes sense to us. What we didn't do is give a timetable.
well, the stabilization of the site has to happen right away.
Yeah.
Whatever stabilization needs, so, that has to happen right away, because there's gonna be a stop in construction, so he's gonna have dirt. He's gonna have soil storage,
Yep.
so. I'd say stabilize it right away as best you can, and engage a wetland scientist right away, and then get down to the office and start the application.
Given the season, I offer that we continue the matter to December 11th.
Just for
May-
status?
Just for status, because they
updates
may
and
not
everything.
get something done, but you certainly don't want to, that's the only meeting we have in December. Now you're into the dead of winter, so let's give him some motivation to get some folks in there and maybe come back to us on the 11th.
So, cease and desist, start the process, come back on the 11th, and advise us as to what your status is,
Is that even
how you're
doable?
progressing.
Will you have, yeah, you may not have an NOI before, it may not have a.
No.
He's never gonna have it.
Anything
He's
before.
not gonna have it, but at
Comply
least
with- Please come in, yeah, tell us.
we're just
Yeah.
gonna know what he's
He
doing.
can have stabilized and at least engaged a wetland person.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Should-
I mean, that's the minimum thing, you can get that 3 weeks to get that done.
See, I mean, realistically, this,
Well, he's gonna start that, he's gonna start that.
realistically, what we can do now is stabilize as the enforcement order lays out, but this project probably isn't gonna move forward until the springtime.
Well, probably not, maybe not, but at least he's gotta get started on it.
I agree.
Yeah.
What I was gonna suggest was, does it make sense to cover some of these stockpiles? You know, cover it with a tarp or something
Sure.
to prevent
Migration,
movement, yeah.
yeah.
Well, that could be part of the stabilization, if he engages a scientist right away.
We've asked them to put silt fence down, which is the right thing to do, and that should stand, but I think it's gonna be exposed for such a long period of time under very wet conditions. I think maybe covering would be a good idea for us to consider.
Probably a good idea. You're probably gonna need to get some advice.
Just some
from somebody.
tarps, big tarps.
How much? Where?
Do you have piles
Piles of,
of loose dirt, sand?
easy it.
Yeah, so that's what we're talking about, covering that and putting a barrier around it so the soil can't migrate. If we have a downpour, the water will cause the soil to migrate. We don't want the soil migrating. We want the soil to be contained right where you have it.
Okay.
That's the stabilization, that's part of the stabilizing site.
If it's not covered, soils like that will tend to overwhelm the erosion control and then not protect the wetland, which is what we're trying to do. So that's why I'm suggesting we just cover it. You know, along the line closest to the, we don't have a map or anything, but along the line closest to the wetland, that should be covered, where it has potential to flow downhill over the erosion control and into the wetland. All right, so
But,
that would be my suggestion. It would be a modification to the
yeah.
erosion.
Enforcement order.
If you engage a wetland person, an expert, like right away, that person can come on the site with you and take the copy of the enforcement order that you're gonna get from Amy, and they'll know exactly what to tell you to do right away, what's important, how to get it done, and then when you report back to us on the 11th, we'll have a good status report.
Okay, so move to continue?
Well, move to amend the enforcement order per the discussion.
Say it again now?
Move to amend the enforcement order per tonight's discussion.
I'll move that we amend the enforcement order as discussed here tonight.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that's unanimous.
And then continue to December 11th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor said aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Okay,
All set.
great. All right. All right, thank you.
in order, looks like, I mean,
So we have a decision.
decision, one
which is
decision.
Leanne Drive, 242-1773.
Yeah, we're doing,
That's all we got left.
1773, Amy?
Yeah.
He's not a happy camper.
Yeah, don't talk to him. We have hot mics. It's my job to look after everybody, keep them out of trouble. I just want to point out, for the purpose of entertainment value only, when Mr. Lynch was chairman, he gavelled a party out of order, and gavelled him so hard out of order that the head of the hammer went flying off into the audience, and then he turned to me and he says, "Sergeant at Arms, do your duty." And remove that man. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I've been promoted to Sergeant of Arms. So, anyway, that was from Mr. Lynch.
Man, oh, man.
He was clearly out of order.
He was clear, out of order. He sure was. Oh, no, let me tell you, prior to TV, we had some fun here. No, this isn't a laugh a minute.
This is the big retaining wall.
Yep.
This is the, yeah.
Chris Williams was the engineer, right? The only thing that at the end of the process that was still unclear is Chris seemed to be going back and forth about wanting to install dewatering controls right up front, and you would prefer to do it as needed. And I think I just want to make sure it's right in here that it be in there.
Let's see, what did I say? Number 47, at the time of erosion control delivery and installation at the site, the necessary dewatering materials shall be brought to the site for storage prior to work commencing. So it's on site. I think that's what,
That's what he was proposing, that's what, no.
That's not what you-
We didn't agree to that. He showed us where the dewatering area was, and it was at the very end of the wall, so we saw no reason why you just simply couldn't install it, wouldn't be in the
Okay.
way. So we want that installed pre-construction.
installed, okay.
Necessary dewatering procedures shall be implemented when you do the time of erosion control.
Oh, so be installed prior to work.
Be brought to the site, replace that was installed.
The bond isn't enough.
You don't think so?
I would say 5.
I mean,
Okay.
3,000 is what we charge for a house.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, just citing historical. Can we, when we get to it, can we talk about 57, because the last time, that deals with Phil, my subject of the day.
Yeah,
So the last time we met, I offered a motion to amend and add language to that for purposes of boilerplate. And I don't see it in that subject. We added language that where it says, any fill used in connection with this project shall be clean fill containing no trash. We added language to it at the last meeting that
certification?
it needed to be certified with a certificate of origin.
All right.
A certificate of analysis, and.
Okay, yes, I'm
remember
so
that now?
sorry. Yep,
Because it really needs to be established boilerplate.
yep. Yeah, I put it in one of them,
I know you did, and
but I gotta carry it through
yeah, it's,
to the boilerplate.
please, and thank you, yeah.
Yeah, because 58, existing concrete can't be used as fill.
Right,
I don't think there is any.
there's some,
Oh, there is?
there is
Oh,
some,
okay.
yeah.
So I remember them talking about big boulders.
There were big boulders, the areas where it's sloughed down over time, they put some concrete,
Yeah.
mortar in between.
Yeah.
And
Try to
that's
stay
the right way, that should be boilerplate on every project.
Right.
You know, it should, both 57 and 58 should be boiled,
Okay.
get it off the site and dispose of it properly, and thank you, that's all I have, thank you. I don't know if you want to use the language from the previous meeting?
No, I will,
Yeah.
I will. I have it,
Okay.
somewhere.
All right, good, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
So I was looking at that bond 3,002, and, yeah, for house, can't compare it to a house, but reality is, the wall is a good distance away, and it's complicated, and we really made them put erosion controls in a big way, and dewatering in a big way. So we pretty much have removed the threat, or minimized the threat. So, heightening up to 5,000 would be the max, but I don't think 3,000 is real far out of line.
Okay. No, like I said, I still think that there's gonna be water issues, but that's, you guys know more, probably better than me, because you approved that subdivision.
Well, I mean, we are down near a full 100 feet away from the resource area, in most of the areas.
50. We're just out of the 50. We're just out of the 50, with edge of erosion control.
Okay.
And then we've got some space between erosion control and the wall.
But that's what I'm remembering, is the 25, they gave us more no disturbance what they gave us, not more 50, more on the
Right.
no build.
Right.
That's right.
So what's the setback?
It's like 58 or something like that, just like a little lane that they can drive.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Is it an area that could destabilize? Is it something we have to worry about?
Well, the original wall failed for a reason, and I think to Lou's point, there's groundwater up there that made it not be very stable, and they came in with a really lousy cross-section of the wall.
Right.
We made them do it right,
Right.
and they did, so
Maybe Lou's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Five
okay.
5
thousand.
grand?
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree. Based on that information, absolutely.
yep.
I move that we amend up to
5.
5,000.
That's why I told him it's be expensive, but he wasn't listening.
Yeah.
Changes.
Good catch, Lou, good catch. I forgot about that soil.
I move that we adopt as amended.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that's unanimous. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, yeah, it's unanimous.
We're
Okay,
adjourned.
we're good.